Peace, y'all. I'm going to talk about reflection today. The divine reflection, elevated world. I'm Drew. Reflection, so to speak, what the mirror is. You know, along this journey or experience called life. It's a lot of philosophies. It's a lot of philosophies. In its colloquial sense, every day we're dealing with someone's, so to speak, we're dealing with someone's version of what life is about. And you got these books, these religious books, you got religions, and these religious books or books of life or books, I like to call them science books. These teachings is supposed to, supply a direction and idea of having faith or belief in something that you otherwise have no proof of, right? These are allegories, stories that are served as lessons or teachings, valuable lessons or valuable teachings of, you know, how to live life, trial and error, right? So to speak. I want to deal with the reflection aspect that is not talked about, okay? It's sort of like, I can give it up on here, right? It's sort of like the inner the inner voice or the inner workings that each individual has. And although, we have relationships, from everything is a relationship as it ties into everything else, right? You have relationship with, lifelong partners. You got relationship with siblings, relationships with associates, and your relationship with the world as you know it, right? But I want to talk about that inner relationship or that inner reflection, that conversation that one must be able to have or communicate with self, especially in a day and age or in a time where so much distractions present themselves daily, with so much interactions present themselves daily, and maybe not even hands on. It could be, on a virtual meta type, social type of time, right? But there's so many moving parts that one that doesn't make time out of this 24 hours a day, and not even saying that we're not even, most people aren't even awake, okay, consciously moving about 24 hours to have time to reflect on what's going on internally and what reality really is. Fret not on what someone else is doing. You have no control over it. Fret not what someone else is doing because you have no control over it whatsoever. I mean, don't worry about the choices that someone else could make that determines, the trajectory of where their life is. And I say that as a parent with all due respect, right? Each individual, every human being or every soul having this human experience, right, has free will to do what they will. I'm talking about from zero to expiration, right? They have free will to do what they will. And a lot of times I believe the anxiety or the stresses present themselves in trying to control what someone else does with, their experience. We don't know it all. We don't have the supreme understanding. We just chipped the iceberg. I believe so myself. We just chipped the ice. We're not even chipping the iceberg. Let me better put. As far as it comes to the Almighty or all knowing, the all knowing wisdom, that all knowing consciousness, right? We have these experiences and they're so detailed, especially in the experience, that we actually recollect and have a memory of it taking place, and more so of how it happened, and why we think it might have happened, and we could be missing the whole thing, not actually communicating or have a healthy communication with ourselves. Okay, I never spoke with anyone that, not in the physical sense, anyone that passed away, right? That passed this form onto the next plane, right? They never told me what it was in the physical, but I'm sure in the spiritual we have crossed over, and we have a portal where as though we can reflect and kind of get understanding on what it's like when we communicate in conscious, or that God mind, right? Or that God, in that God energy, right? And I want to call it that God energy because, actually reflecting, actually just in reflection, the the idea of the man in the sky is so Santa Claus coming down the thing, just thinking about, the man in the sky construct is so Santa Claus coming down the chimney. They go hand in hand. The bunny rabbit Easter thing, it's like that. You know, the reflection on what it is that we're experiencing at this moment is, you know, I like to say the feeling. The feeling you know, comes from the ultimate understanding, and that's love, or that's the heart, right? If you just think about the organ, the heart, what the heart's job is, right? Is to always be on point. Is to always be working. The heart is always working. Once the heart stops working, the physical is not gonna, it's not gonna, it's not. It doesn't have long, right? Once the heart stops working, right? And it's got to be love, because I'm talking about true love, real love, and what real love is. Real love is understanding. Real love is the experience and loving the experience and feeling. Okay, and that's what this life is. It is experience, through feeling, right? If you just, in this colloquial sense, right? You say, I have feelings for this young lady, this young woman. I want to make her, my wife. I want to, right? That feeling is the experience. That's when someone's catching feelings. Someone's in their feelings, right? They're in an experience. They're having an experience, and the experience is a phenomena, because that's what we remember in the physical. The brain is tied to that. Okay, that's what God loves. Okay, the our mental or mind space is used in another function. That actually can develop and create before it becomes into fruition. It can create it can create a whole world, a universe, if you will, right? And without being physical yet. It's sort of like, that's where the dream comes from. That's the mental space, And if you can reflect, when you, depending on how tapped in you are, right? You can actually schedule it out and map it like an architect, right? And draw out make the blueprint and follow through in the physical and create something and manifest it into fruition. Okay? That sort of way. that is divine. And although it takes both the physical attribute and the non-physical attribute, and they combine, they mix, and it become a materialize. You take the immaterial and then it materializes. Okay, uh, these things are the understanding. And so, as far as I can remember, you can someone's memory of a said event or said events can become shaky, right, or can become foggy, and then it's not so clear anymore. You say, well, that might have actually, that could have been, another way. That might have won another way, right? And that's all because, you know, life, as we reflecting on life, right? When has life not been exactly right now in this moment? Right now we're making a video, and right now we're looking at a video, and we're here now, right? We here now. When has it ever been any other way? It's like having a dream, right? Going to sleep having a dream and not remembering what you dreamed. You know you was dreaming, and then sometimes you do remember the dream. What was different about that occurrence? Was it real or was it not real? Or are we dreaming now? And then when you sleep, you're really not dreaming. Reflection is all. This is a divine reflection. It's not looking back. I'm not reflecting isn't necessarily looking back and remembering. The reflecting is in the now, is manifesting, right? Being aware of the being aware of the situation and being aware of presence and what's presenting itself now, and being clear and standing clear on your vision and the way that you see yourself, the way that you feel about yourself, and taking that and allowing that to become what you needed to become. Because since younger age, with ambitions and certain things, like just striving to be whatever. It could have been that race car driver, it could have been that doctor, that lawyer, it could have been that famous leader, it could have been even the president, even the freedom leader. It could have been, things come into fruition, and they come into fruition by first having the seed planted. And the seed has everything in it to reproduce itself. So when that dream, or when that vision, or that seed that was planted becomes manifest into fruition and becomes now in the physical, or into the material physical world, okay, to reflect on what that journey was, might merely be not necessarily a memory. It might be a legend that's told, one day. Who knows, right? It could be a legend that's told, a demonstration that was set forth by brilliant minds, brilliant thinkers, that actually took the time to reflect on what it was, and what it was that was planted, and where it needed to go, and how planned it out, how to get there, right? And although it may not been, it may not been easy, or it may not had came together exactly the way that they thought it was, but what the reflection does is it mirrors, like a mirror, it's when you see me, I'm made in the image of. You see God and what God really is. You understand? Not no man in the sky. Not no man in the sky. It's in you in consciousness. It's in you in spirit. All of us. You know, it's not what we're shown it to be. Because the best way to sort of like this, do you think if you pay, do you think that, let's say the animal kingdom has to deal with different, they deal with diversity. They deal with things the way that it is. They know three things. They know what and who they are. They know what they're supposed to do, and they know where they come from. Right? You take, the animal kingdom, right? Dogs, cats, birds, lions, tigers, and bears, right? They know those three things. Okay? It's not, they're not operating on competing, not the way that we do, right? But they're not competing with status or belief that, you know, whether they believe one can fly higher than the other one can. In sense of birds, right? Like, do you actually think the birds think that, oh man, you can fly, you got two wings like I got two wings. I believe that you can fly higher than me. I believe I can fly higher than you. Let's fly, let's have a fly off to see who can fly higher. Or let's say whose feathers, look. I don't think they operate that way. Or when it comes to the, let's say the dogs, the dogs is going to see who can bark the fastest, who can bark the loudest, right? Not saying them barking isn't communicating, but I don't think that's not what they're doing. Let's have a bark off. Let's battle with the barking. I don't believe that's what they know. What they are. They know what they're supposed to do, and they know where they come from. Okay, and so on and so forth. The reflection part kind of be like, oh, and let's take a step back right now. Let me sit still for a minute. Let me gather. Is that, I see the news and I see the states of the unions, and I see people saying what they saying and other people saying what they saying. Is that really, how do I, how does that become, how's that, how can I apply that, to the greater good? How can I get further, than where I am now with that being said? Or is that distracting me? Or is that, is that pulling me, pulling me back? Is that pulling me down? Is that, affecting my mood? Because when your mood or your spirit is affected, right, by what someone else is doing, right, and that you don't have any control what someone else does or what someone else says, or however they carrying it, you don't have, that's not, you fret not about what someone else is doing, because your self-communication and your self-spirit and your self-acknowledgement and your self-love, right, supersedes anything that's going on. And the world will could spin you, when you start buying into that. Sort of like when you get on these when you get on these things, right, and you get to liking, I like a certain thing. Now it's going to suggest that video that I liked to other more videos like it, and that's how that begins the algorithm. All right, check the algorithm, reflect. That's what the reflection is. And this is a continuous thing. And you have to have healthy rituals. We gotta have those. We gotta have the healthy rituals. Everybody's not here to do the same thing. The hand doesn't do the same job that the feet does. The head is not supposed to do the same job as the legs, right? And the heart is does what the heart's supposed to do. You know what I mean? And neither should be in competition with the other, or neither is in a position to tell the other one what they should or shouldn't be doing. especially when they operating properly in consciousness, because they work together as one. So sometimes we just we what we see, we're unaware of what's taking place, and it's not recognizable to us. So we rush to a judgment, and we take on a notion on what we may believe it to be by things that was suggested to our software that we carry with us, since a youth. Mainly about how life is supposed to be lived and the ideas of those that came before us who misunderstood, so to speak, and educated us on that notion. So now we have just as little understanding as them, because we do no reflection. That was left out of it. Hit that pause button, review your options, real time and real space, especially if it's not dire. Experience is the beautiful thing. Experience life. That's what the experience is. Let life touch you. Touch life. Don't let life hurt you. You understand? But care. Fret not about what someone else is doing. Fret not about what they feel about you, and and don't let it alter what you know internally or consciously, that you're doing the right thing and you're on the right path. And it's a beautiful thing, man. I hope everybody have a truly wonderful, great everything. I'm Drew. Peace.